At 12:01 a.m. on New Year's, my brother's voice shattered the silence of my cramped Oakland studio. Maya, Dad saw the news, he couldn't breathe. We're calling 911. His words came out in gasps, panic bleeding through the phone. In the background, I could hear my mother's voice, high-pitched, hysterical, screaming something about Bloomberg and billions and what have we done. My hands were still greasy from the takeout lo mein I'd been eating alone while the rest of San Francisco celebrated. The champagne I'd bought to toast my own success sat unopened on the counter, because apparently, you can become a billionaire and still have no one to celebrate with. But here's the thing that made my chest feel like it was caving in. 3 hours earlier, at exactly 9 p.m., I'd sent my family a text message. A simple message telling them that at midnight, TechVantage would finalize the acquisition of my AI platform for $2.1 billion. I'd wanted them to know first. I'd wanted them to be proud. They'd all read it at 9:47 p.m., every single one of them, and then they'd gone right back to their party. The party I'd been banned from because, according to my mother, I made people uncomfortable. If you've ever been the black sheep in your family, the one who never quite fit in no matter how hard you tried, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I want to know this story is reaching people who understand what this feels like. And subscribe, because what my family did next is something you won't believe. Let me take you back 2 weeks, to the phone call that started everything. It was December 17th, a Tuesday, and I was in the middle of debugging code when my mother called. Her voice had that careful, apologetic tone she always used when she was about to disappoint me. Maya, sweetie, about New Year's Eve, your father and I have been talking, and we think it might be better if you sat this one out. Better. As if staying home alone while your entire family celebrated together could ever be described as better. She continued before I could respond, her words tumbling out faster, like she'd rehearsed this. Your Aunt Linda is bringing some very important investors, people who could really help David's law firm partnership go through. And you know how you get at these things, honey. All that tech talk about AI and algorithms, it just makes people uncomfortable. They don't understand it, and we don't want anyone feeling awkward at what should be a celebration. I remember staring at my laptop screen, at the lines of code that represented 3 years of my life, and feeling something inside me just deflate. I understand, I'd said quietly, because what else was there to say? This wasn't new. This was the same script that had been playing since I dropped out of Stanford 6 years ago to build my company. My family. The Chens of San Francisco, with our Pacific Heights address and our country club membership and our carefully curated reputation, had never understood me. My older brother David was the golden child, Stanford Law, summa cum laude, on track to make partner at Morrison and Foster before he turned 35. My younger sister Jennifer was the beautiful one. A social media influencer with 400,000 followers, dating venture capitalists and tech CEOs, always photographed at the right parties with the right people. And then there was me. Maya Chen, the dropout. The one who'd abandoned a full ride at Stanford to work on some computer thing in a cramped studio apartment. The one who'd chosen lines of code over law school, who'd chosen equity over a steady paycheck, who'd chosen risk over the safe path my parents had laid out for me. For 6 years, I'd been tolerated at family gatherings. I'd sit at the dinner table while my father bragged about David's latest case, while my mother showed everyone Jennifer's newest Instagram campaign. When someone asked me what I was working on, I'd learned to say tech consulting because the moment I started explaining neural networks or machine learning, I could see their eyes glaze over. My own father once interrupted me mid-sentence at Thanksgiving to ask David about his golf game. That's what uncomfortable really meant. It meant I reminded them that I'd chosen differently, and my choice reflected poorly on their carefully constructed world of status and appearances. So when my mother banned me from New Year's Eve, I accepted it the way I'd accepted every other small rejection over the years. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I just said I understand and hung up, and then I sat in my apartment and told myself it didn't matter, because in 2 weeks, the acquisition would be final and maybe, just maybe, they'd finally see that I'd been building something extraordinary all along. New Year's Eve came, and I spent it exactly the way you'd imagine, alone, with cheap wine and cheaper takeout, watching my family's celebration play out on Jennifer's Instagram story. She'd posted 14 stories by 10 p.m. I counted. There was my father in his tuxedo, raising a champagne flute to toast family and legacy and the traditions that bind us. There was my mother, radiant in Chanel, laughing with Aunt Linda and her mysterious important investors. There was David, arm around his fiancée Priya, looking every inch the successful attorney. And there was Jennifer herself, stunning in a gold dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, blowing kisses at the camera with the caption, "Blessed to ring in the new year with the people who matter most." I wasn't in a single frame. It was like I'd been photoshopped out of the family entirely. Here's where it gets worse, and if you're still watching, hit that like button because you need to hear what happened next. And I'm genuinely curious. Have you ever sent someone important news and been completely ignored? Comment below, because I thought I was the only one pathetic enough to experience this. At 9 p.m., with 3 hours left until midnight, I did something stupid. I sent them a group text, "The acquisition papers are being signed at midnight. TechVantage is buying my platform for $2.1 billion. I wanted you to know first. I'm sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but I understand. I love you all. Happy New Year." I watched the message status change from delivered to read by mom at 9:47 p.m. Then read by dad. Then read by Jennifer. Then read by David. All of them. Every single person in my family saw that message. My mother read that her daughter, the disappointing one, the uncomfortable one, was about to become a billionaire, and she didn't respond. My father read it and went back to his toast about family legacy. Jennifer read it and posted another Instagram story at 10:15. Champagne and laughter, not a care in the world. David read it and shared a photo captioned, "New Beginnings," at 11:30. I sat there staring at my phone for 2 hours, watching those read receipts, waiting for something. A text. A call. Even just congrats, with an exclamation point. Anything to show that this mattered to them, that I mattered to them, that 3 years of 18-hour days and maxed-out credit cards and eating ramen for dinner had resulted in something they could finally be proud of. Nothing came. At 11:58 p.m., I raised my glass of $7 wine to my laptop screen and watched the acquisition documents finalize. At 11:59, I officially became one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in tech history. At midnight, fireworks exploded outside my window, the whole city celebrating while I sat alone in the dark, eating cold lo mein, realizing that no amount of success would ever make me enough for the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. That's when I understood, they hadn't banned me because I made people uncomfortable. They'd banned me because I reminded them that there were paths in life beyond their narrow definition of success, and my very existence was a threat to the world they'd built. I was the living proof that you could reject everything they valued and still build something extraordinary. And they couldn't forgive me for that. Subscribe right now if you want to know what happened after that devastating realization, because the phone call that came at 12:01 a.m. changed everything. And not in the way you think. At 12:01 a.m., my phone lit up with David's name. His voice was shaking so badly I almost didn't recognize it. "Maya. Oh my God, Maya, where are you?" Dad saw the Bloomberg alert, they're running it as breaking news, saying you're the founder of Vision AI and TechVantage just paid $2.1 billion, Maya, he collapsed. He can't breathe. Mom's losing it. We're calling 911 right now, the line went chaotic. I could hear my mother in the background, sobbing, her words tumbling over each other. We banned her, we banned our daughter, oh God, what did we do? We banned her on the night she became a billionaire. Someone was shouting about an ambulance. Someone else, Aunt Linda maybe, kept repeating I didn't know, I swear I didn't know. And underneath it all, I could hear my father's labored breathing, this terrible wheezing sound that made my blood run cold. Which hospital? I asked, already pulling on jeans, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the phone. California Pacific, the emergency room. Maya, please, David's voice cracked. He kept saying your name. He kept saying I didn't call her, I didn't congratulate her, what kind of father, and then he just collapsed. I made it to the hospital in 23 minutes. The Uber driver congratulated me. Apparently the news was already everywhere, trending on Twitter, CNBC running a segment about the mysterious tech founder who'd stayed completely under the radar until tonight. My phone was exploding with notifications. Reporters. Investors. Old Stanford classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly very interested in reconnecting. But all I could think about was my father's wheezing breath on that phone call, and the horrible irony of it all. If you're feeling the weight of this moment, if you understand what it's like when the people who hurt you suddenly need you, comment karma below and tell me, is this justice or just tragedy? Because I still don't know. They'd read my message 3 hours earlier. 3 hours. While I sat alone in my apartment, watching their celebration on Instagram, eating cold Chinese food and wondering what was wrong with me that I could never be enough for them, they'd known. They'd known I was about to become a billionaire, and they'd chosen to keep celebrating without me. They'd chosen to keep me banned, to keep me excluded, to keep treating me like the family embarrassment even after learning I'd built something worth $2 billion. And now my father was in the emergency room because the guilt and shock had literally stopped his heart, and I was racing through San Francisco at midnight to be there for people who hadn't been there for me when it mattered most. The hospital waiting room at 1 a.m. on New Year's Day is a special kind of purgatory. My family was clustered in the corner, my mother's makeup streaked down her face, David pacing like a caged animal, Jennifer curled up in a chair with her arms wrapped around herself. When I walked in, they all froze. My mother made this sound, something between a sob and a gasp, and lurched toward me. Maya, oh Maya, I'm so sorry, but I walked past her, straight to the nurse's station. I'm Maya Chen. My father, Robert Chen, came in about an hour ago. Cardiac event. The nurse's eyes widened slightly, she'd clearly seen the news, but she stayed professional. He's stabilized. The doctor will be out shortly to talk to the family. Family. What a loaded word. I turned to face them then, these people who shared my blood but had spent years making me feel like I didn't belong. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. David looked like he wanted to say something but didn't know where to start. And Jennifer. Jennifer was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. The message, I said quietly. You all read it at 9:47. 3 hours before midnight. My mother's sob caught in her throat. David stopped pacing. I waited, I continued, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. I sat there for 3 hours, watching you post Instagram stories and celebration photos, and I waited for one of you, just one, to acknowledge what I'd told you. To say congratulations. To ask how I was feeling. To care that this was the biggest moment of my entire life. Maya, David started, but I held up my hand. You only called when it became public. When it became a crisis for you. Not because you were happy for me, but because my success had become something you had to deal with. That's what hurts the most. Not that you banned me, I'd made peace with that. But that even after learning what I'd achieved, you still didn't think I deserved a phone call. The waiting room had gone completely silent except for my mother's quiet crying. And that's when Jennifer stood up, her face pale, her hands trembling. Maya, she whispered. There's something I need to tell you. About why they really banned you. It's my fault. It's all my fault, and it's so much worse than you think. Jennifer's voice cracked on that last word, and suddenly she was crying, not the pretty, Instagram-worthy kind of crying, but the ugly, mascara-streaking, breath-hitching kind that comes from real shame. She grabbed my arm and pulled me away from our mother and David, into a quiet corner near the vending machines where the fluorescent lights made everything look harsh and overexposed. I need to tell you something, she whispered, glancing back at our family like she was afraid they'd hear. About Marcus Westfield. About why Mom and Dad really banned you from New Year's. I stared at her, confused. Marcus Westfield. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. The venture capitalist, Jennifer continued, her words tumbling out faster now. Aunt Linda's investor friend. The one they said would be at the party. And then she told me everything, and I swear I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. 2 months ago, October, right around Halloween, Jennifer had been dating Marcus. Not seriously, just casually, the way she dated most men, expensive dinners, yacht parties, events where she could be photographed looking beautiful on someone important's arm. Marcus had mentioned he was looking for new AI investments, something cutting edge that could disrupt the market. And Jennifer, wanting to impress him, wanting to seem like more than just a pretty face with a popular Instagram account, had told him she had the perfect opportunity. She'd pitched him my company. My AI platform. My 3 years of work. Except she'd pitched it as her own idea. If you're feeling your blood pressure rising right now, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button because this betrayal goes even deeper, and you need to hear how this plays out. Comment below if you've ever had a family member steal credit for your work, because I genuinely want to know if this happens to other people or if my family is just uniquely terrible. I didn't think it was a big deal, Jennifer said, and I could hear the desperation in her voice, the need for me to understand. You'd mentioned the concept at Thanksgiving last year, remember? When Dad cut you off to ask David about golf. You'd been explaining how your neural network could predict market trends before they happened, and I remembered it. And Marcus was so impressed. He called it visionary. He said whoever came up with that concept was going to be the next big thing in tech. I felt sick. Actually physically sick, like I might throw up right there next to the vending machine that was advertising stale sandwiches for $8. So you told him you came up with it, I said flatly. Jennifer nodded, tears streaming down her face. But then he did what any good VC does, he researched it. And he found you. Maya Chen, founder and CEO of Vision AI, Stanford dropout, quietly building exactly what I'd described. And he called me out on it. He was so angry, Maya. He said I'd lied to him, that I'd tried to take credit for someone else's work, that he couldn't trust anything I said. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I panicked. I told him we were estranged, that you'd stolen the concept from me during a family dinner and rushed to patent it first. I said you were unstable. That you'd had a breakdown at Stanford and that's why you dropped out. That the family had distanced ourselves from you because you couldn't be trusted. The fluorescent lights were buzzing overhead, this constant irritating hum that seemed to match the ringing in my ears. My own sister. My own blood. Had told a prominent venture capitalist that I was a thief and mentally unstable. Had tried to destroy my reputation to cover up her own lie. Marcus didn't believe me, Jennifer continued, her voice barely a whisper now. He did more research. He found articles about your platform, interviews you'd done with tech blogs, your patents. He realized I was lying about everything. And then, she took a shuddering breath. Then Mom mentioned that Aunt Linda was bringing her new investor friend to the New Year's party. I asked who, and when she said Marcus Westfield, I lost it. I couldn't let him come to a family event and see me with you. I couldn't let him talk to you and realize that not only had I lied about the concept being mine, but that we weren't estranged at all, that I'd made everything up. So she'd convinced our parents that I would embarrass the family. That I was too awkward, too obsessed with tech, too likely to dominate conversations and make the important investors uncomfortable. She'd told them that David's partnership was on the line, that Aunt Linda's investors were connected to Morrison and Foster's biggest clients, and that one weird dinner conversation about AI could derail everything David had worked for. I thought I had time, Jennifer sobbed. I thought the acquisition was months away, that I could slowly rebuild things with you after New Year's, maybe position myself as someone who'd been helping you with networking and connections. I thought Marcus would forget about the whole thing, that I could salvage my reputation. I never imagined, her voice broke completely. I never imagined it would happen so fast. That the deal would close on New Year's Eve. That you'd become a billionaire on the exact night I'd gotten you banned from the family celebration. This is the moment where everything changes. Subscribe now if you haven't already, because what I'm about to tell you about the next 48 hours will show you exactly what happens when a family's lies catch up with them. And drop a comment, would you forgive a sibling who did this to you? Because I'm still figuring out my answer. I stood there staring at my sister. This person I'd grown up with, shared a bathroom with, taught to ride a bike, and I didn't recognize her. The Jennifer I thought I knew was self-absorbed and vain, sure, but not cruel. Not calculating. Not someone who would systematically destroy her own sister's reputation to hide her own inadequacy. You told a venture capitalist I stole from you, I said slowly, making sure I understood. You told him I had a mental breakdown. You convinced our parents to ban me from New Year's Eve. Not because I was embarrassing, but because you needed me out of the way so your lie wouldn't be exposed. And you were planning to swoop in after the acquisition, claim you'd been helping me behind the scenes, and position yourself for what, equity? A consulting fee? A cut of my success? Jennifer couldn't speak anymore. She just nodded, her face crumpled with shame. Behind us, I could hear my mother talking to David in frantic whispers, probably wondering what Jennifer was telling me. A doctor had emerged from the emergency department, looking for the Chen family. My father was stable, awake, asking for me. But I couldn't move yet. I needed to understand the full scope of what had been done to me. The text message I sent at 9 p.m., I said. You all read it. You knew I was 3 hours away from becoming a billionaire. And you still kept me banned. You still went back to your party. You still celebrated without me. Jennifer's voice came out as a broken whisper. I didn't know what to do. If I told Mom and Dad the truth right then, they'd know I'd been lying for months. If I told them to call you, they'd ask why the sudden change, and Marcus was literally in our living room. I thought, she laughed, this horrible bitter sound. I thought maybe if I just got through the night, I could figure out how to fix it. How to manage the situation. I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't hit you all at once. It comes in waves. The first wave had been that phone call 2 weeks ago, being told I made people uncomfortable. The second wave had been watching those red receipts, realizing my family had seen my message and chosen silence. But this was the tsunami. This was understanding that I hadn't been rejected because of who I was, but because of who my sister had pretended to be. That my entire family had turned against me to protect a lie they didn't even know they were protecting. Dr. Patel is asking for the family, David called from across the waiting room. He looked confused, worried about why Jennifer had pulled me aside. Our mother was standing now, wringing her hands, her eyes red and swollen. And I had a choice to make. I could tell them all right now what Jennifer had done. I could expose her lies in this hospital waiting room at 2 a.m. on New Year's Day, while our father lay in a hospital bed recovering from a cardiac event. I could watch their faces as they realized the depth of her deception, could see her perfect Instagram-worthy life crumble in real time. Or I could hold this information close, let it sit, and decide later what kind of person I wanted to be in the face of the worst betrayal I'd ever experienced. We'll talk about this later, I told Jennifer quietly. Right now, Dad needs us. The relief that flooded her face was almost painful to watch. She actually thought I was going to protect her, keep her secret, let her off the hook. And maybe I was, for now. Not for her sake, but for my father's, and for my own. Because I was exhausted, and heartsick, and I needed time to process what I'd just learned before I decided how to respond. Dr. Patel was young, probably early 30s, with kind eyes and the sort of calm demeanor that comes from years of delivering bad news to frightened families. Mr. Chen is stable, he said, and I watched my mother's shoulders sag with relief. It was a panic attack that triggered a cardiac episode, but there's no permanent damage. We're keeping him overnight for observation, but he should be fine to go home tomorrow. Can we see him? David asked. Dr. Patel nodded. He's been asking for Maya specifically. I'd suggest maybe just 1 or 2 visitors at a time so we don't overwhelm him. They all turned to look at me. Of course they did. I was the one Dad wanted to see. I was the one whose success had triggered this whole crisis. I was the reason we were all standing in this hospital at 2 a.m. instead of sleeping off our champagne hangovers. I'll go, I said. The walk down the corridor to my father's room felt impossibly long. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket, more news alerts, more interview requests, more congratulations from people I barely knew. The entire tech world was waking up to the story of Vision AI's acquisition, and I was walking toward a hospital room to face the man who'd once told me I was throwing my life away. Before I tell you what happened in that room, I need you to do something, like this video if you're still here, because what my father said to me changed everything I thought I understood about family and success and forgiveness. And comment where you're from, because this story is bigger than just me now, and I want to know how far it's traveling. My father looked small in that hospital bed. Robert Chen, the man who'd always seemed larger than life, commanding boardrooms, closing deals, building the family reputation brick by careful brick, looked old and fragile under those white sheets. The machines around him beeped steadily, monitoring his heart, and when he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. Maya, he said, his voice hoarse. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I pulled a chair up next to his bed and sat down. We'd never been a physically affectionate family. The Chens showed love through achievement and approval, not hugs and kisses, but I took his hand because he looked like he needed something to hold on to. I read your message, he said. At 9:47, I read what you wrote. And I knew I should call you, should text you, should do something. But there were people in the house, and David's partnership, and I thought I'd call you in the morning. After the party. I'd call you first thing on New Year's Day and tell you how proud I was. He closed his eyes, tears slipping down his cheeks. And then at midnight, Bloomberg sent the alert to my phone. Stanford dropout Maya Chen sells AI platform for $2.1 billion, becoming one of youngest self-made female billionaires. And everyone at the party saw it. Their phones all went off at once. And they all turned to look at me, asking if you were my daughter, the Maya Chen, and I had to stand there and admit that yes, you were my daughter, and no, you weren't at the party because we'd told you not to come. The shame in his voice was so raw it hurt to hear. This was Robert Chen, who'd spent his entire life carefully cultivating success and status and reputation, admitting that he'd made the worst mistake of his life in front of everyone he'd been trying to impress. Aunt Linda's investor, Marcus something, he started laughing, my father continued, his voice breaking. Not happy laughing. This bitter, cruel laugh. And he said, you banned the guest of honor from her own celebration. That's rich. And then he left. Just walked out of our house. And I realized what we'd done. What I'd done. I'd pushed away my own daughter on the most important night of her life because I was ashamed of her. Because she didn't fit into my narrow definition of success. Because I was too proud and too stupid to see that you'd been building something extraordinary all along. The machines kept beeping, steady and relentless, marking time passing, marking moments we could never get back. When I saw that news alert, when I realized everyone knew about your success before I'd even congratulated you, my chest started hurting. And all I could think was, I'm going to die without ever telling my daughter how proud I am of her. I'm going to die, and the last thing I did was ban her from a family party because I cared more about appearances than about her. I sat there holding my father's hand, listening to his confession, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly. It was too soon for that, and the hurt was too deep. But maybe understanding. Maybe the beginning of a path towards something that could eventually become healing. I'm not going to lie to you, Dad, I said quietly. What you did hurt. All of you reading my message and choosing to ignore it hurt worse than being banned in the first place. Because it showed me that even my biggest achievement wasn't enough to make me matter to you. That no matter what I accomplished, I'd always be the disappointing daughter who made people uncomfortable. He sobbed then, this broken sound that made the machines around him beep faster. A nurse poked her head in, concerned, but I waved her away. But, I continued, I also understand something now that I didn't before. You didn't reject me because I wasn't successful enough. You rejected me because my kind of success threatened your worldview. Because if I could drop out of Stanford and become a billionaire doing something you didn't understand, it meant everything you believed about the right path might be wrong. And that was too scary to accept. My father opened his eyes and looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. You're so much smarter than I ever gave you credit for, he whispered. Not just about computers and AI, but about people. About life. You saw through all of us, didn't you? You knew why we pushed you away, and you went ahead and succeeded anyway. I didn't do it to prove you wrong, I said. I did it because I loved the work. Because building Vision AI made sense to me in a way that law school or medicine never would have. Because for the first time in my life, I was doing something that felt authentically mine, not something I was supposed to do to make the family proud. We sat in silence for a moment, just the beeping of machines and the distant sounds of the hospital around us. Outside, dawn was starting to break over San Francisco. New Year's Day, 2024. The first day of the rest of my life as a billionaire, and I was spending it in a hospital room having the most honest conversation I'd ever had with my father. What happens now? He asked finally. With us? With the family. Can you forgive us? I thought about Jennifer's confession, still burning in my mind. I thought about my mother's tears and David's guilt and the years of small rejections that had led to this moment. I thought about the text message I'd sent with so much hope, and the 3 hours of silence that had followed. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I'm hurt and angry and confused. But I also know that you're my family, and that has to mean something. It can't just mean something when it's convenient for you, though. It has to mean something all the time, even when I'm making choices you don't understand, even when I'm pursuing success that looks different from what you imagined. Here's where I need you to engage. Comment below. If your family only valued you after you became successful, would you let them back in? Would you forgive them, or would you walk away and build a new family from scratch? Because I'm standing at this crossroads right now, and I genuinely don't know which path leads to happiness. My father squeezed my hand. I'll do better, he promised. We'll all do better. Just, don't give up on us yet. Please. I stayed with him until he fell asleep, his hand still holding mine, his breathing finally steady and calm. Then I walked back out to the waiting room where my mother and David and Jennifer were waiting. They all stood when they saw me, their faces anxious, hoping for absolution I wasn't ready to give. He's sleeping, I told them. The doctor says he'll be fine. My mother moved toward me, arms outstretched, but I stepped back. Not cruelly, just firmly. I need some time, I said. To process all of this. The acquisition, the party, everything that's happened tonight. I'm going home, and I'm going to sleep, and then I'm going to figure out what comes next. Maya, David started, but I held up my hand. I'm not cutting you off. I'm not disappearing. But I'm also not pretending that everything is okay just because Dad had a health scare. You all made choices last night, choices that hurt me deeply. And before we can move forward, I need you to understand that those choices have consequences. I looked at Jennifer, who was staring at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. Some of those consequences are going to be harder than others. But we'll deal with them when Dad is home and healthy, and when I've had time to think clearly. Then I walked out of that hospital into the cold January morning, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was the one in control. Not my family's expectations, not their approval, not their definition of success. Mine. The next 48 hours were a blur of phone calls and interviews and lawyers and accountants. The media couldn't get enough of the story: Stanford dropout becomes billionaire while banned from family's New Year's party. Some outlets painted me as a victim, others as a vindication of the dropout entrepreneur narrative. My face was everywhere. Forbes, TechCrunch, The Wall Street Journal, even the Today Show wanted an interview. And through it all, my phone kept buzzing with messages from my family. My mother sent long texts about how sorry she was, how proud she'd always been even if she hadn't shown it. David wanted to discuss the legal implications of my newfound wealth and help me strategize. Jennifer's messages were the most desperate: please don't tell them what I did. Please, Maya. I'll do anything. But the message that surprised me most came from Marcus Westfield himself. Ms. Chen, I owe you an apology. Your sister told me some disturbing things about you a few months ago, and while I didn't believe her, I should have reached out to verify the truth directly. I'd like to make it up to you by offering my expertise as you navigate this transition. No equity stake, no strings attached. Just a former fool trying to do the right thing. Congratulations on your success, it's well-deserved. I stared at that message for a long time, thinking about how one lie had rippled out to affect so many people, how my sister's desperation to seem important had nearly destroyed my reputation with someone who could have been a valuable connection. And I realized something: my family hadn't just hurt me by banning me from New Year's Eve. They'd hurt me by never believing I was capable of success on my own terms, by always treating my choices as embarrassments to be managed rather than achievements to be celebrated. That knowledge settled into my bones, heavy and undeniable. On January 3rd, my father came home from the hospital. I went to see him, not at the Pacific Heights mansion where I'd grown up, but at a coffee shop halfway between my Oakland studio and their neighborhood. Neutral ground. He looked better, color back in his face, but there was a new hesitancy in his manner, like he was afraid of saying the wrong thing and losing me forever. "Thank you for coming," he said, and those 4 words carried more weight than any conversation we'd had in years. We talked for 2 hours. Really talked, not the surface-level exchanges we'd been having for years. I told him about the early days of Vision AI, about the nights I'd gone to bed hungry because I'd spent my last $20 on server space. About the investors who dismissed me as too young, too female, too inexperienced. About the moments I'd almost given up, and the determination that kept me going. And he listened, truly listened, in a way he never had before. "I wish I'd known," he said finally. "I wish I'd asked. I wish I'd been there for you instead of making you feel like you had to prove yourself to earn my approval." "But that's the thing, Dad," I said gently. "I shouldn't have had to prove anything. You should have supported me even when you didn't understand what I was doing, even when it scared you, even when it looked like I was failing. That's what family is supposed to do." He nodded slowly. "You're right. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be that father for you, if you'll let me." It was a start. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a start. Then I asked him to call a family meeting for that evening. All of us, Mom, David, Jennifer, and me. It was time to address the elephant in the room, the secret Jennifer had been carrying, the lie that had set this whole disaster in motion. If you're still watching, I need you to subscribe right now, because what happened at that family meeting will either restore your faith in people or destroy it completely, and either way, you need to see how this ends. Drop a comment: Team Forgive or Team Cut Them Off? Because what I decided might surprise you. That evening, we gathered in the formal living room of my parents' house, the same room where they'd hosted the New Year's Eve party I'd been banned from. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Jennifer looked terrified, David looked confused, and my parents looked worried. I'd told them this meeting was important but hadn't explained why. "I need to tell you all something," I began, standing while they sat. "About why I was really banned from New Year's Eve. And Jennifer, you're going to sit there and let me tell it, or you're going to tell it yourself. Your choice." Jennifer's face went white. My mother looked between us, startled. David leaned forward, suddenly alert. "What's going on?" he asked. So I told them. Everything. Jennifer's lie to Marcus Westfield about creating my AI concept. Her panic when he researched and found me. Her escalating lies about me stealing from her, about me being unstable, about us being estranged. Her manipulation of our parents to ban me from New Year's Eve so Marcus wouldn't discover the truth. Her plan to swoop in after the acquisition and position herself as my secret helper deserving of compensation. By the time I finished, my mother was crying again, but this time not out of guilt for banning me, out of shock at what Jennifer had done. David looked like he'd been punched. My father's face had gone dangerously red, and I worried briefly about triggering another cardiac event. "Jennifer," my mother whispered. "Tell me this isn't true." Jennifer was sobbing, her perfect composure completely shattered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she choked out. "I just wanted to impress him. I wanted to be taken seriously for once, not just seen as the pretty girl with the Instagram account. And then it spiraled, and I didn't know how to fix it, and I panicked." "You destroyed your sister's reputation," David said, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. "You told a prominent VC that she was a thief and mentally unstable. Do you understand what that could have done to her career if he'd spread that around? Do you understand that you could have cost her everything?" "I know." Jennifer screamed. "I know, okay? I know what I did. And I've been living with the guilt every single day, and when the acquisition happened on New Year's Eve, on the exact night I'd gotten her banned, I wanted to die. I wanted to actually die because I knew what I'd done and I knew there was no way to fix it." The room fell silent except for Jennifer's sobbing. My mother reached for her, then stopped, uncertain. My father just stared at his youngest daughter like he'd never seen her before. And I stood there, watching my family fracture in real time, knowing that whatever happened next would define us for years to come. "Here's what's going to happen," I said quietly. "Jennifer, you're going to send a message to Marcus Westfield confessing everything. You're going to tell him that you lied, that I had nothing to do with your deception, and you're going to apologize for trying to damage my reputation. You're going to do this not because I'm forcing you, but because it's the right thing to do." Jennifer nodded frantically. Yes, I will, I promise." "And then," I continued, "you're going to take some time to figure out who you actually are, separate from Instagram likes and venture capitalist boyfriends and trying to steal other people's achievements. Because until you do that, you're going to keep hurting people to make yourself feel important." I turned to my parents. "And you two are going to understand something, I don't need your approval anymore. I would like your support, and I would love your pride, but I don't need it to know my worth. I spent 6 years chasing your validation, and on New Year's Eve, I finally understood that I was never going to get it, not because I wasn't good enough, but because you were looking for the wrong things." My mother made a sound like I'd slapped her, but I kept going. "If you want to be part of my life going forward, it's going to be on new terms. You're going to respect my choices even when they make you uncomfortable. You're going to celebrate my successes even when they don't look like what you imagined. And you're going to love me for who I am, not for who you wish I was." "We do love you," my father said, his voice breaking. "Maya, we do." "Then prove it," I said simply. "Not with words, but with actions. Not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Not just when I'm a billionaire making headlines, but when I'm just your daughter trying to figure out her life." I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. Before I left, I turned back one more time. "I'm not cutting you out of my life. But I'm also not going to pretend that everything is fine just because we had one honest conversation. You hurt me. All of you, in different ways. And healing from that is going to take time and effort from everyone, not just me." 6 months later, things are different. Not perfect, but different. My mother sends me texts that aren't just about family obligations, she asks about my work, actually asks, and listens to my answers even when she doesn't understand the technical details. My father and I have lunch once a month, and he's learning to bite his tongue when I make decisions he doesn't agree with. David and I are slowly rebuilding trust. He's helping me set up a foundation to support women in tech, and he does it without trying to take over or fix my approach. And Jennifer? Jennifer checked herself into therapy and took a break from social media. She sent that message to Marcus Westfield, a full confession and apology, and he actually responded with unexpected grace. She's working on herself, genuinely this time, and while our relationship is still fragile, there are moments when I see glimpses of the sister I used to know. The one who existed before Instagram fame and desperate insecurity. I moved out of that Oakland studio into a beautiful loft in Soma, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. On New Year's Eve 2025, I'm hosting a party, a small one, just a dozen close friends and colleagues who believed in me before the acquisition, who saw my worth when I was nobody's definition of successful. My family is invited. I sent them the invitation with a note, this time, you're welcome to attend. But you're not the guests of honor, you're just guests. And that's okay. I don't know if they'll come. I don't know if we'll ever fully heal from what happened that night. But I know this, I spent New Year's Eve 2024 alone, eating takeout and becoming a billionaire while my family celebrated without me. And I survived it. More than survived, I learned from it. I learned that the people who love you should celebrate your success, not just tolerate it. That family isn't just about blood, it's about showing up when it matters. That sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong, it's proving to yourself that you never needed their approval in the first place. So let me ask you one final time, have you ever been rejected by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? Have you ever achieved something extraordinary only to realize the people you wanted to impress weren't worth impressing? Drop a comment and tell me your story, because you're not alone. None of us are. And if this story meant something to you, if it made you feel seen or understood or just less alone in your own family struggles, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because this is just the beginning of learning what success really means, and trust me, it has nothing to do with the number in your bank account and everything to do with the people you choose to share your life with. My name is Maya Chen. I'm 28 years old. I'm a billionaire. And I spent the most important night of my life completely alone. But you know what? I'm okay with that now. Because sometimes being alone is better than being with people who make you feel lonely. And sometimes the family you build for yourself matters more than the one you were born into.